As you can see, we added a couple of additional clusters compared to where we left off in the last tutorial. So we also made a cluster with new business models, one for the checkout process and one for staff training. We can also see that we received a couple of notifications in the notification center, and this is where the feedback ends up when we send it after, for example, completing the clustering process. So if I go to see all notifications, I'll get my notification center and I see that David had interacted with my ideas, and I can click on them to view the details, or I can see mark all as read and notify the system that I've seen them. So every time we complete a feedback loop, the ideator who's connected to the idea we're interacting with will get one of these notifications. It's a lot faster than emailing all ideators individually. So if we go back to our cluster view, what we want to do now is set the status on these different clusters, because often we don't have the bandwidth to work with all of them at the same time. So for example, I'm going to park new business models. So I'll change the status to parked. I'll choose to not notify my ideators at this time, and I press save. And then can we see that the status bar has been updated. And for the checkout process, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to park it. I'm going to send no notification and press save and go back to ideation. As for social selling and the staff training, it turns out that the organization is already doing this in a lot of locations. So an additional kind of benefit with running ideations at scale is that you create alignment and you learn a lot about what the rest of the organization is doing. So this one we're going to put as already in project and choose not to notify ideators at this time. So now we have a bit more of a balanced portfolio and two clear priorities to go into more structured exploration with. Let's look at movable desks. So in this view, we see the ideas connected to this cluster. If we press the Learn More button, we get an explanation to why this step in the process is important. If we want to add an hypothesis, we press the plus and we basically paste it in. So for this one, I prepared an hypothesis with the following thesis to test. The location of the desk impacted conversion rate from 10 to 12%. And if you press add, it shows up here. Two things important to keep in mind when you're designing hypotheses is one, have one action per hypothesis. So we can't put the location and the time will impact the conversion rate, because then we don't know if the location is the time is the indicator affecting the metric. So then we have to split them up. And for the same reason, we should always put a measurable signal to it, so we have something to compare against. So these two things are really important. This 0 here indicates that we have 0 experiments connected to this hypothesis. The status is unknown because we haven't started testing yet if we want to edit it or delete it. The next step is to design an experiment to go out and test if this assumption we made seems to be valid in the next tutorial.